Temple of Solomon. Of the many elements of paganism that the Israelites introduced into Judaism, the most important was that of the sacred king, giving rise to the notion of the divine right of kings. When the Israelites asked Samuel, "Appoint for us, then, a king to govern us like other nations." 11. The request for a king was an implicit rejection of God as king, and Samuel warned his people of the burden and oppression that would necessarily result. However, God advised Samuel to concede to their request. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. According to all the deeds that they have done, from the day I brought them up out of Egypt even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." 12. Samuel anointed Saul and then David king over Israel as Mashiach, Anointed One. The essence of the innovation of kingship. David, the father of Solomon, was the idea that, in addition to divine election through Samuel and public acclamation, was the idea that he also received God's promise of an eternal dynasty. The promises of Psalms 132 and 2 Samuel 7 were conceived of as a covenant with David, through his descendants, paralleling the covenant with Israel. 13. The Bible describes how David captured Jerusalem and brought the Ark of the Covenant into the city, and sought to build a temple of God, thus joining the symbols of the dynastic and the national covenants. However, God would not let him build the temple, for he had shed much blood. 14. Instead, the temple was completed by his son Solomon, who placed the ark in the Holy of Holies, the innermost room and most sacred area, the site of God's presence. The Israelites went so far as to pollute the very temple of Jerusalem itself with the accoutrements of this cult, including worshipping Asherah poles, or phallic pillars. The construction of the Temple of Jerusalem Solomon built, as described in the Bible, was in a manner quite foreign to the doctrines of the Israelites. The Bible maintains that Solomon had sent a message to the king of Tyre asking if he could hire the services of the king's master builder Hiram, a Canaanite, skilled in geometry. Hiram was referred to as a son of a widow, a term traditionally used to refer to priests of the goddess. 2 bronze pillars, Boaz and Jachin, were erected at the door of the temple, the double pillars sacred to the dying god and the goddess. Temples dedicated to the goddess in Tyre are said to have featured stone pillars of phallic design at their entrances, which were the focus of fertility rites performed in honor of Astarte at her special festivals. Herodotus, a Greek historian of the 5th century BC, described 2 pillars in the temple of a god he referred to as the Phoenician Hercules, meaning the Canaanite Baal. According to later Jewish and Islamic traditions, Solomon possessed a signet ring known as the Seal of Solomon, the symbol of a 6-pointed star, which gave Solomon the power to command demons, jinn, genies, or to speak with animals. Talmudic legend has Solomon deceiving Asmodai, the prince of the demons, into collaborating in the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. 15. The name Asmodai or Asmodeus is believed to derive from Avestan language Ishma-Deva, Zoroastrianism's demon of wrath, where Ima means wrath and Deva signifies demon. 16. According to the Deuterocanonical legend, Asmodeus gave Solomon the shamir, which according to the Gemara was a worm or a substance that had the power to cut through or disintegrate stone, iron, and diamond. Solomon is said to have used it instead of cutting tools, because it was inappropriate to use tools that could also cause war and bloodshed in the building of the temple, which was to promote peace. Apparently, Solomon also used the blood of the shamir to make gemstones with a mystical seal or design, which led to the belief that gemstones could serve as talismans. The legend that Solomon possessed a seal ring on which the name of God was engraved and by means of which he controlled the demons is related at length in the Talmud. 17. This legend is especially developed by Arabic writers. In one version, the chief of the demons, either Asmodai or Sakra, obtained possession of the ring and ruled in Solomon's stead for 40 days. According to the Talmud, Asmodee tricked Solomon into unbinding him and giving him his ring, and then threw him 400 leagues away from Jerusalem and ruled in Solomon's place for several years. When Solomon returned to Jerusalem claiming to be the real king, the rabbis interrogated his wives, who revealed that the impostor demanded to sleep with them while they were menstruating or to bed Solomon's mother, his mother, Bathsheba. The rabbis thereupon immediately reinstated Solomon, and Asmodee fled off in the sky. 18. The Quran mentions the Shamir when pointing out the ignorance of the jinn who worked for Solomon concerning the occult, and emphasizing that all knowledge rests only with God. And when we decreed death for him, nothing showed his death to them save a creeping creature of the earth which gnawed away his staff. And when he fell, the jinn saw clearly how, if they had known the unseen, they would not have continued in despised toil. 19. According to commentators such as Ibn Abbas, c. 619–687, when Solomon died, his body remained leaning on his staff for a long while after, nearly a year, until a creature of the earth, which was a kind of worm, gnawed through it and weakened it until the body fell to the ground. It was then that the jinn realized that he had died long before and that they had been hard at work the whole time, falsely assuming they were being supervised. It also became clear to the humans who engaged in magical practices, or worshipped the jinn, that they did not truly possess knowledge of the occult. This story was related on the authority of Ibn Abbas, the son of Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, an uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, and a nephew of the Maymuna bint al-Harith, who later became Muhammad's wife. Ibn Abbas was one of Muhammad's cousins and one of the early Quran scholars. 20. According to Islamic tradition, when Solomon lost his kingdom, a large number of people and jinn had transgressed and pursued their lusts. When God restored to Solomon his kingdom and the transgressors reformed their ways, Solomon seized their holy scriptures which he buried underneath his throne. When Solomon died, the people and the jinn uncovered the buried scriptures, and the knowledge of magic they contained was falsely attributed to him. 21. Through Solomon's reputation as a master magician, his seal came to be seen as an amulet or talisman, or a symbol or character in medieval and Renaissance-era magic, occultism, and alchemy. The legend of Solomon's magical knowledge persisted through the centuries, such as the example of the 17th-century grimoire, the Lesser Key of Solomon. Ars Goetia is the title of the first section of the Lesser Key of Solomon, containing descriptions of the 72 demons that Solomon is said to have evoked and confined in a bronze vessel sealed by magic symbols, and that he obliged to work for him. In demonology, a seal, also known as a sigil, is the signature of a devil, demon, or similar spirit, usually in order to sign a soul away.